Good morning, everybody. Appreciate everybody working with our technical difficulties here. The speaker was working earlier when we were with the caterers, and then it just died on us, so I apologize for that. What a journey it has been to be here. And I appreciate everybody for taking the journey and taking the time out of their busy schedules to come celebrate this day with us. This is not just an opening for AHP's new office here in Florida, but just overall for the work that we're about to do. AHP and our entire executive leadership staff, some are here today. Jeff Tackle, our COO up front. We got Jen Poland back there. She commands our CTAC organization. We're thankful for you guys coming out to celebrate this special day with us. Now, for all our colleagues, friends, and family who aren't from the Florida region, that gator sign back there, you don't have to worry about that. Florida Gators are friendly, okay? To know the Florida journey and how we came here today, we need to go back. We need to go back to our founder, Neil. Neil passed away not too long ago, and he always had that vision of expanding our services into the state of Florida. He wanted to open an office here, and he would often talk about it in small settings amongst friends and colleagues. It was something that he had a vision for. Neil was a man of great compassion and trust. When I first met Neil, he offered me the leadership role to build out the administrative entity team. His trust, and with the help of many of the executive leadership team, we've been able to accomplish that. And not only did we accomplish that as a team, but we are now managing over $9 billion in funding on behavioral health programs around the country in urban and rural areas. So truly a testament to Neil and his legacy. So I'd like to say thank you to Neil and his family, to my fellow executive team for believing in the ACE dream. ACE stands for Administrative Services Entity, for those who don't know, but also for believing in what AHP stands for. This is not only a testament to Neil, but also to Noah, his son, who is now the president and CEO of AHP. Noah has truly taken this vision and expanded upon it with rigor, fresh perspective, and he embraces not only the past, but the future. So like his father, he believes in AHP. He believes in the vision, he believes in the mission. He is not somebody who is motivated by profit, but what we can do as a unit, what we can do collectively, what we can accomplish in the terms of good for society. AHP's mission is simple. AHP seeks to improve behavioral health and human services systems to help organizations and people reach their full potential. We help to make concept a reality. We are problem solvers, and we are solution architects for the real world. Like our honored guests who are sitting behind me here, thank you all for coming, by the way, AHP serves a higher purpose, one that makes you proud at the end of the day of who you are and where you work. Before we introduce our honored guests, keeping in the spirit of family, I'd like to thank Charity, Daniel, and Mia for coming today. They are my support, my life, my family. I love you guys very much. I'd also like to highlight my parents who are here today. My mother and father, they're truly the best people that I know. Hardworking, loving, and caring for their family, very much in the way that Neil did, and now that Noah does. Mom and Dad, I love you and thank you for making me the man that I am today. Now, for all the military-affiliated folks, veterans, and everybody else that we have in the audience, which I believe we have several Army and Marines, you're going to have to forgive my dad. He's Air Force. But don't give him too hard of a time. Be sure to bust his chops a little bit later, though. Thank you, Mom and Dad. Today we have an amazing panel of individuals. Hopefully everyone has gotten a chance to view their bios up there. They are a great blend of Americans who are here today to help us celebrate this great day of opening AHP South. These are all great folks with amazing families who have done or are doing positive things to change and influence lives. They have provided service in some form or fashion across the nation and some across the world. So we'd like to honor them as we celebrate this day. Their service is beyond worthy of recognition. So it is my honor to recognize them with the HP Lifetime Achievement Award. So for the next few minutes, I'll introduce each one of them, and we'll ask them each a question that was drafted by somebody from the HP team. We're going to do this in a manner to just kind of celebrate the day, but to also open up dialogue and talk about their past, but also the work they're doing and the work that AHP is doing, and show the parallels there. We not only want to give you a glimpse into the world of service, but also just good deeds in the work that we do. We all have to work jobs. We all have to provide for our families. So if we're able to do it and do some good, that's even better. So we'll start here with my good friend, Dr. Brian Banks. Dr. Brian Banks is a veteran, a doctor, and a counselor. That's a great blend. Dr. Banks, what are your thoughts on early training and counseling for new soldiers in the realm of alcohol and substance abuse, to be proactive and stymie some of the issues that plague our veterans before they begin?
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me here. Stand up. These moments, man. First of all, you called me and said you'd like for me to be here, and I'm looking at the panel here, and I'm thinking, I don't know, but I'm here and I'll do the best I can for you. Then, of course, I'm always grateful to our leadership for allowing me to participate in this. But I think a couple of things that come to mind when you talk about the stymieing some of the issues in the military. Number one, I think we have to acknowledge the inherent stress and potential traumas of just being in the military alone. Acknowledging that from the beginning, and incorporating some education and training to address that from the beginning, so that we can prevent some of these dysfunctional coping mechanisms that show up as you make your trek through the military career. And then to have the buy-in and support of the leadership of the military, and maybe inputting some mentoring programs of those who might have encountered some of these negative circumstances, and help those who are entering to prevent this in the first place. Okay. And then, of course, where it does occur, implementing programs that can address some of those things that show up.
Thank you. Yes. Appreciate that. We definitely need that proactive work with the veterans before the issues begin. It's something that we've been looking at as far as a military community, but also as the activists who work alongside of those military veterans. Did we have a question for Colonel or for Dr. Banks? Was it Sabrina? Go ahead, Sabrina.
What specific strategies or resources would you recommend incorporating into early training to make it the most effective?
Yeah, so number one, just the education, just to address, again, the inherent stresses and traumas that come with being in the military, such as deployment issues, being deployed, the isolation that could potentially come from deployment, and then, of course, post-military career and re-entry into civilian life, to address that from the beginning and through discharge, specifically with some of the folks that we have here on the panel. So those are a few of the things that come to mind right away when you ask that question.
Thank you, Dr. Banks. We appreciate that. Thank you for the question, Sabrina. Val, if you could give our honored Dr. Banks his Lifetime Achievement Award. Thank you. Dr. Banks touched on a lot of good topics, and that brings us to our next guest, who really needs no introduction in the realm of veterans work. Colonel Reyes, the Eagle, as he was called in his days of service. Did I get that right? The Eagle?
Eagle 2.
Eagle 2. Okay, that was under General Petraeus. He's been fighting the good fight relentlessly for veterans from the backyards of Tampa Bay to Capitol Hill. He is a relentless advocate, not only a warrior on the battlefield, but off. Colonel Reyes, thank you for coming today. Our question for you is, why would you say getting homeless veterans shelter is such a major priority in the hierarchy of needs?
Well, first, Daniel, I want to personally thank you on behalf of me and my family for this great day and for honoring me and allowing me to join this esteemed panel. And to AHP, it's great to see some of the folks on AHP now in person instead of virtually, as well as many of our friends in the Community Resource Network that I've already run into here in Hillsborough County. To get back to your question, that is the $64,000 question. But before I answer it, I have to share with everybody very quickly how Daniel and I first came into each other's acquaintance. It was several years ago, actually, that while I was in and I still am, supporting the Hillsborough County Veterans Treatment Court, which is a criminal court that deals with veterans in trouble with the law because of all types of conditions and such, that I met Daniel. Daniel was then the judicial clerk for the then Veterans Treatment Court judge and fellow West Point alum, the Honorable Gregory P. Holder. And through that acquaintance, I met Daniel, got to work with him a lot. Of course, he went on to do greater things. I stayed supporting our veterans in the foxhole and making sure that they got the needed services they need. But as God would have it, he connected us again. And so here we are today. And our paths have merged and the causes have merged as well, which leads me to your question about housing. So in the Veterans Treatment Court, if I may, when they come before the judge will ask the veteran, he will say to the veteran, okay, you're admitted into the court, we're going to take care of you on the legal side, and we're going to get you the medical services and support you need with the VA. But what are the other things that you need, the other conditions or challenges that you have that if not resolved is probably going to not help your case well, and it's not going to help your case for getting well, and you're going to probably become a recidivist and resort back to criminal behavior. And in the 11 years that I've been doing this since the start of the Veterans Treatment Court, I have anecdotally, not by empirical evidence or anything, but anecdotally, by experience, I've identified 5 major areas that these veterans will bring forth to the judge in a volatile cocktail mix. They'll either have 1, 2, 3, 4, or all 5 of these, and they are in order: low-cost, affordable housing and shelter, viable employment, credible education in terms of licenses and certifications, so we can get them employment, affordable, reliable transportation, and food security. These are the 5 that I have seen. I've briefed this in the White House. I briefed it on Capitol Hill, and as part of a couple of veteran bills that we had. Notice I said the first one, low-cost, affordable housing. Now, I can share with you also that I'm an appointee on the U.S. Secretary of Veteran Affairs Advisory Committee for Homeless Veterans. So I work with Secretary McDonough and his staff currently. And I've told the Secretary, Mr. Secretary, your current policy of housing first is critical and it's key, but it's not the wrap-all. It's not the entire answer. And here's why. The reason is it's kind of like the parable of feeding a fish to a man for a day, but you're not teaching them how to fish, okay? Once you get them to secure housing or shelter, you have to already have in place that comprehensive wraparound services, such as what we have in Hillsborough County with our comprehensive community resource network. That covers the whole panoply of services that I just described and more. And so I am so excited to partner with AHP because literally we're going to take your mission, which dovetails with the infrastructure that we have already in not only Hillsborough County, but in Florida. And we're going to template it on, and we're going to get them the help that they need, starting with low-cost affordable housing, but then we're going to make sure they get everything else, so the end state will be a treated and rehabbed veteran, which means a reintegration back with their families and their loved ones, which means a better community for all of us.
Excellent. Thank you, Colonel Reyes. You can hear the passion in Colonel Reyes' voice, and we'll present you with your Lifetime Achievement Award from AHP. Okay, we're going to move on to Mr. Postweight, Brian, if you will, who currently serves as the Chief Operating Officer of Homeless Services here in Florida. To say that his job is busy is an understatement. We got a chance to meet Brian at the Florida Conference for Ending Homelessness, and thank you for coming. We'd like to present an award to you, but before we do that, we want to ask you a question as well. Where can you see HP stepping in to make an immediate impact on the homeless effort fronts in Florida?
Well, thank you, Daniel, and distinguished guests. Great to be with you. What an honor just to ride down here and have such an honor. What a great way to start the week. I'm very excited to meet AHP, a new friend here in Florida. I think really AHP has the opportunity to bring their experience in combining behavioral health, homeless services, workforce development, and all the other variety of things, and really integrate services, show us here in Florida some of the successes that you've had in Massachusetts, California, and other places. So very excited to see you bring your set of skills, expertise, and solution architecture to this state.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you. We did have a question from the audience, and that was with Tam, I believe. Tam, did you have a question or no? No. Oh, okay. All right. We'll present you with your award, sir. Thank you. Our next honored guest, Mr. Rohn, thank you for joining us today for the ribbon cutting ceremony. You have been in the trenches with down and out veterans. Obviously, you're a veteran yourself. You've been there when they're at their lowest of their lowest and when they've really needed help. You currently serve as a project manager with the Farmers Veteran Coalition. So our question to you, sir, is how does farming and ranching help veterans to heal and recover?
So, thank you, first of all, for this just profound opportunity to address and the audience, and for this opportunity at all to be in this. I'm just so moved. I can't begin to articulate how moved I am, but I can tell you that the veteran and farming and ranching have a very, very unique connection. I won't go into the numerous peer-reviewed studies and empirical-based research that has shown that farming and ranching are a tremendous solution for healing. But I can tell you that there's, again, I thought this was quite moving what Colonel Reyes pointed out. There are 5 different areas that we focus on in the farming and ranching transition. We want to help address the veteran's sense of self-worth that was attached to their rank that they wore on their shoulder or their chest when they were in service, their sense of purpose that came with their military occupational specialty or their branch, their sense of community that comes with the unit that they served, those with whom they ate, they laughed, they cried, they feared, and those numerous emotional and moving experiences. And then number 4, the one that that is not often spoken of, but hits us all, not just veterans, but everyone, and that is the sense of shame that could be attached to moral injury, survivor's guilt, all types of traumatic experience. And then the last one, which as I get older and longer in the tooth, reduced or diminished viability, right. Be it cognitively or be it physically. These are all challenged. So in our work in transitioning the veteran into farming and ranching, what we try to do is ensure that involved and engaged in that work, that these areas are addressed. And then what we try to do is to address the sense of purpose in a way that helps the veteran translate those skill sets that you acquired while in service, and that is attached to PMCS, which is preventive maintenance, service, and checks.
Okay.
But that is of the body, mind, and spirit. And what we found is that AHP has a tool that specifically addresses that, and it's called the Wellness Recovery Action Plan. And in that Wellness Recovery Action Plan, it helps us to navigate significant life events that come with any phase of life and the challenges that come with it. And what we've been able to do at Former Veteran Coalition, and we are 50,000 plus strong, is to help the veteran in their transition prepare for whatever significant life event they have in front of them, and then to apply those skill sets of mission oriented activities or mindset, and the failure is not an option
Right.
approach to that. So farming and ranching is very impactful. Those are the anecdotal approaches that we've made. We are collecting data as we speak in combination or in collaboration with the USDA, because what we want to do is provide, as Colonel Reyes, we are a partner in advisory committees. I sit on the advisory committee for the Secretary of the VA for vocational rehabilitation and VRNE, and we want that to be an option because it offers or affords the veteran the opportunity to continue to serve his community by feeding his community in that hierarchy of needs, food, shelter, safety. So thank you for this opportunity to answer that question.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Present you with your award. Thank you, Mr. Rohn. Appreciate it. And we'll keep things moving here. General Butler, former general of the Green Beret. You've commanded over 50,000 troops, served over the span of multiple presidencies, been to dozens of countries for deployments, and probably visited or was stationed at every major U.S. Army base. With your vast knowledge and experience, what would you like the military and government to do better for soldiers preparing to exit or retire from the military?
Thank you, Dan, for that great introduction.
Yes, sir.
First off, thanks to the rest of the board. It's a pleasure to meet you. We almost had a time to work together.
Yes, sir.
Councilman Vieira, one of the best city councilmen in Florida, is here. The question is really interesting because I have lived through what he's talking about. In the military, we have a culture. We are hard and tough. Nothing can hurt us. Nothing. And that's the problem. Because during the time you spend, especially in conflict, you're going to have some issues. You're going to have issues. But you don't know that. Why? Because no one has ever educated you on the issues that you're going to have. I remember not far from here, across the street, in fact, at the gymnasium there, I used to work out there. I was working on the treadmill, and this guy looked like he was born in the gym, big muscles. And we were talking. I found out he was a veteran. And I said, "Are you retired?" He said, "Yes." I said, "How are you retired?" "Oh, I got 100% disability." Remember, this guy looked like he was born in the gym. I was struggling with 50% disability, trying to fight the VA to get more. And I said, how did you get 100% disability? He said, "I worked in HR. I was in the S1 section." He said, "Before I retired, I did my research. I read up. I knew that a couple years before I retired, I needed to go to the doctor every day and get it documented. So when it's over, he's got a file that thick. Recent, they give him 100%. Me, I'm hard as beaver's teeth. You can't hurt me. Yeah, I hurt a little bit, but I'll be all right tomorrow." I was wrong. The reason I didn't get it was because of education. I didn't know. I was not out to scam anyone. I was not out to scam anyone. Now think about this. When I retired, I was a general. I had a guy who did all that stuff for me. He came to me one day and he said, "Sir, you're getting 50%. I was like, "Whoa, Manna from heaven. I didn't realize because I didn't know any better. So the thing we have to do is start educating these soldiers young. You are not invincible. You are going to hurt. Your 24-year-old hurt is going to be a lot worse when you're 64 years old. We got to start educating them on that. We have to start educating people on the process of what? Taking care of yourself. In the military, we're always taught to take care of everyone else. Take care of yourself. And that's going to be an educational process. You know, there are a lot of people out there with PTSD and other things who don't acknowledge it. And I'll raise my hand and say, I didn't acknowledge it, but my wife knew. My wife's the one that told me, Bud, you need to go to the doctor. Something's wrong with you. And I went, and guess what? But by doing that treatment, I got healed. Well, not totally, but you know. Yeah, I'm better. I'm a lot better. But anyway, you have to get educated on what you don't know. And that's the whole key, Dan. And once we figure out a program, all these other programs are great. But if you start first, the bottom, the base of educating the folks to what they're going to go through. Thanks, Dan. I appreciate this.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
I think we might have had one question for you as well, General. Matt, yes.
Senator Butler, wanted to ask you, in a recent podcast you had done a couple of years ago, Convos for Heroes, you had mentioned that you wanted to be remembered from your military standpoint as a person who led from the front.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you that for folks who have children today, looking at our future military men and women, what would you say is the top characteristic of somebody who leads from the front?
That's one of the best questions I've ever had because I've never thought about it. It's called leadership. There are different schools of thought on leadership. Some schools say you can teach leadership. I really don't believe that. Some people say you're born with leadership. I think it's a combination. You have to be born with the innate drive to succeed and be first and push forward. But you have to have the ability to do that also. And everybody doesn't have the ability to be a leader. You know, a lot of people, as you see in the military, we say up or out. Well, some people were happy where they were, and they did a great job. They couldn't fit the up or out. So, hope that answers your question. Any more questions? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We've spoken a lot about the VA and the impacts that soldiers face once they get out, and you've heard some of the stories here. We're going to switch gears now a little bit, and we're going to speak with my good friend, Dr. 𝐒𝐤𝐤𝐫. Dr. 𝐒𝐤𝐤𝐫, you've worked for the VA for some time now, and you've expressed the pride and passion of working with vets. Thank you for that work. What would you say brings you the most joy in working with veterans, and what would you say would be some of the biggest challenges you see them facing when they come to see you?
Yes, thank you, Dan. Thank you for having me. It's truly humbling to be on this panel with such esteemed women and men here. First, I'd like to say that I've been at the James Haley VA for 17 years. I also teach in the medical school at USF. But being at the VA goes without saying, it is such an honor and a privilege to take care of our military, the people who defended our country. And as General Butler has mentioned, they've been through so much, and I get to see that on a daily basis. For me personally, the biggest joy in taking care of our military has been on the medicine side, and I'll just throw an example. For one, I never have to fight with an insurance company about doing what's right for my patient, and for that brings me so much joy. And I'll give you an example. So just like how dermatologists, they say when you're outside, always wear sunblock and sunscreen. So the same thing for your eyes, always wear sunglasses when you're outside. And the reason, as a corneal transplant surgeon, one of the things I also take care of are cancers on the surface of the eye. And so just like how UV sunlight can make us develop skin cancer, we can also develop cancers on the surface of the eye. And when patients develop that, one option, of course, is to remove it, to excise it, to do cryotherapy, and that's a procedure in the operating room. But also, there are ways, if someone cannot go to the operating room, to treat it with topical chemotherapy. And these drops, typically you take for 3 to 6 months to eradicate the cancer. Now, in the private sector, a 2-week formulation of that compounded chemotherapy drop would cost $2,000. At the VA, the veteran just pays an $8 copay for that. And so that when you have experiences like that, that to me is the biggest joy of what I do. And for me, it's such a win-win to be able to take care of our military and then at the same time teach our young ophthalmology residents and who are going to be my colleagues in the future, but teaching them about how to be a good physician and how to take care of patients. And so that's the biggest joy for me.
Thank you.
And now on the flip side, what do I see as some of the challenges in taking care of our veterans? I would say the biggest challenge that I see is communication. In many aspects, communication from doctor to patient, and we've definitely that aspect has improved over my 17 years now. We're definitely getting better in that. But one of the things that I always try to stress to every veteran that I encounter every day is our eye clinic is one of the largest eye clinics in the country for ophthalmology. We have every subspecialty here in Tampa, and that's very unique for a VA healthcare to have that. But we take walk-ins for emergencies. So any veteran who ever has any eye problem, whether it's trouble seeing or pain, discomfort, anything that's going on, they can come and walk in and get seen that day right away. And on top of that, if it's a federal holiday or a weekend, we have our eye doctors on call all the time, 24/7. So there's never a reason why they cannot be seen. But I still, every day, I encounter some veterans who never knew that, you know. And so, so striving for communication, I think, will only improve our care for our veterans.
Thank you, sir.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you. I know everybody's hot. We're going to keep things moving, but also the moral of that is sunglasses. I see a lot of people out there without sunglasses. This next guest, I couldn't be prouder of because it's my sister, my big sister. Somebody I've always strived to keep up with. She has paved the way in so many facets for equitable healthcare access across the nation. Dr. Danae Simpson, you worked tirelessly to help establish transplantation care amongst minority populations. What would you say would be some advice on how we can navigate those challenges to ensure equitable healthcare access for veterans, particularly when addressing the unique physical and mental health needs that they face in underserved communities?
Well, thank you, Dan. It's truly an honor to be here and so special to me. You know, when I started on my health equity journey, I never imagined that I would be sharing in that journey with my brother, and it means a lot. I think it says a lot about our parents and our upbringing, that they have 2 children in service to our communities and to in various different ways. So thank you so much for having me here. I'm not a veteran, but you know, as a trainee in the Harvard Health System, we spent a lot of time serving veterans at the West Roxbury VA in Massachusetts. So I did receive a lot of my education there. And you know, I think that when we think about serving different patient populations, there are a few takeaways that I think are that we can use across whatever group we're talking about. It doesn't matter if it's veterans, it doesn't matter if it's Black patients or Hispanic patients or those with disabilities. And I think the first thing is that we have to understand that simply having open doors to our health system doesn't mean that patients have equitable access. Right. We need to understand the uniqueness of the patient population that we're serving, which means we need to give them a seat at the table when we're thinking about different interventions to help these patients, whether we're trying to address mental health needs or other physical needs. As I said, I'm not a veteran. I cannot claim to understand the experience of the veteran. So how could I create an intervention to help these veterans? So we have to invite our patients to be a part of the solution and listen to them. And that creates cultural competency. But I think another part is that we have to have cultural congruency, which means we need to support people with lived experience to be providers to these patients. And so we have to make sure that we're supporting those who have served to be on the provider side in healthcare to help bridge that gap and communicate with those patients. Health equity means that everybody has the opportunity to achieve their highest level of health. And I think that one thing that many of us don't understand is that only 20% of a person's health is affected by what happens within the four walls of a health system. The other 80% happens outside in our community, in the places that we were raised, the places that we live, the places that we get our education, the places that we fight and serve our country. And so we have to have interventions that are outside of the health system in order to get at the very root of the health problems and conditions that we see as providers once patients come through our doors. So that means we need to be partnering with institutions like yours, with the armed services, with the government, with policymakers, to really understand the social drivers of health, the things that create the problems in the first place. And so those are the things that I would say we need to think about. We need to think about the veteran's voice. We need to think about not only cultural competency, but cultural congruency. And we need to think about our lived environment and how we can affect the care of our patients in those spaces.
Thank you, Dr. Simpson. As you can all tell, I got some catching up to do to meet that expectation. Did we have a question for Dr. Simpson? No? Thought we had one. Okay. Our last guest. Our last guest is our guest of honor, Carol Bianco Miller. I first met Carol almost 2.5 years ago when I was starting to build out my team here at AHP. I partnered with her in many facets of the business to help establish the ACE team that now manages over $9 billion of grants fund in combination with other teams across AHP. Carol has always been a respected member of the AHP elite, if you will. What I mean by that is she's pretty much been here since the beginning. She's seen it all. If Neil was the father, that you'd maybe be the cousin or the sister, something like that. But no, Carol has been truly an instrumental part of AHP and our growth and just where we are today. We couldn't have done it without her. Her successor, Jen, is also here, and I urge everybody to have a conversation with them afterwards and just hear some of the stories. As I said, she's been a pillar of the company for over 25 years. She helped to take this team and really focus on the mission-driven service that we are performing today. Carol is a former executive who presided over AHP's Center for Technical Assistance and Training. That was a 150-person professional staff unit that worked directly on projects in the realm of health, human services, substance use disorder, homelessness, housing, health policy, financing, business planning, and program development. So Carol was very, very busy. And we thank you for that, Carol. We'd like to thank Carol for her service and her dedication, and also give her an opportunity to say a few words in closing here. Carol?
Thank you.
Woo! Thank you. I'm so thrilled to be in the shade. Talk about a hot seat, man, I tell you. So, but it's great to be here. As Dan said, I've been with AHP for a long time. I am now semi-retired, but really thrilled that I maintain just a little bit of a connection, because this has been, the work with AHP has been part of my soul, my DNA, for many, many years. And some of my closest and dearest friends, you know, came from my relationships and my work here at AHP. And I'm so honored to be following this very illustrious group. Your remarks were so on point, and you really helped remind us, you know, what our priorities should be, you know, what's important to pay attention to. And I'm just so thrilled to be here. And to be the guest of honor, I'm kind of humbled by that after hearing from all of you. So thank you, Dan, for giving me that honor as a almost retired, really retired person. If I weren't here, I would, you know, probably be in the gym or in the pool. So it's nice to be here. But those are the fruits. I'm enjoying the fruits of all those years. This, as Dan said, this is really a very special occasion as the realization of a dream that Neil had. Neil Schiffman, our founder and CEO, he had this dream for many years, and I only wish that he could be here in my place. If he were here, he would be saying these remarks right now. So I'm going to try to channel him and give him credit, because I do believe that he is still present with us. So his vision and passion live on here in Florida and throughout our nation through hundreds and hundreds of HP staff in partnership with thousands of stakeholders, consumers, family members, government officials, neighborhood leaders throughout our nation, working hard to make their communities more welcoming and supportive for people who face some of the greatest challenges that life offers. And we heard about many of them today. I was fortunate to be welcomed into the AHP family, and I use that term purposefully because I've often said AHP doesn't hire, it adopts. And I feel like that's part of why I haven't been able to completely cut the cord, because I feel that this is my family as much or more than some of my biological family members. So that was more than 25 years ago. The times have changed. Then was a time of relative peace. AHP and the world were very, very different places then. Before the horror of 9/11, I can't believe when I was writing this, I said, man, I started before 9/11. What has changed since then? Before the devastating impacts of that day and the wars that followed. And we heard about some of those impacts earlier now. So then AHP was just a small operation with only 24 staff and a few training contracts. That was it. But even then, Neil was traveling to Florida to help Broward County design their homelessness service system. So our connections here in Florida go back to before 9/11, to before 2000. He was brought in to help the county and the Partnership for the Homeless to strengthen their focus on outreach and services for people with behavioral health disorders, and especially those who were justice involved. His work with Broward County remained one of the projects that he was most proud of. So Neil's commitment, as we heard from Dan from the beginning, and the one that we carry forward, was that AHP has to make the world a better place. We must be an agent or agents of positive change. For him, and this story I've only heard recently, but it rang true to me as soon as I heard it. This decision crystallized as a young man in graduate school during an internship based in a courtroom dealing with drug offenders. He described seeing most of the white defendants walk out the door and people of color retained. After that, he vowed to devote his life to changing inhumane and unequal behavioral health and criminal justice systems. So at AHP, we've always sought out projects and initiatives that serve people who are often ignored or forgotten or discriminated against by the service systems that are supposed to help them. For nearly 40 years, most of our work has been aimed at righting those wrongs. Across the country, we've worked from high levels of government to streets and neighborhoods to create inclusive communities and recovery-oriented services for people experiencing homelessness, leaving institutions, or rebuilding their lives after incarceration. In fact, in Florida, from 2002 to 2010, we expanded on Neil's early work in Broward County to assist with a statewide supportive housing implementation in partnership with USF down the street and their Florida Mental Health Institute here in Tampa. It was so rewarding to be part of a system transformation that helped thousands of people move out of homelessness or congregate living into their own homes. It's still one of the things that I'm most proud of these days. So as AHP has grown and matured, we've learned a lot, including how to better serve current and former service members and their families. And I hope that we will learn even more through the partnerships that were discussed today, especially those who fall through the cracks and the gaps in our system and end up in the criminal justice and homelessness systems. Way, way, way too many. So we do remain optimistic about the future. There have been many advances over the last 25 years. For example, the stigma of mental illness and addiction has reduced, but we still have far to go. It's far from being eliminated. People are still embarrassed about seeking treatment. Our understanding of trauma and PTSD and its pervasiveness and its impact on survivors' health, relationships, their lifespan has led to the dissemination and adoption of trauma-informed care throughout systems and the development of some trauma-specific treatments that we're learning more and more about every day. Our understanding of homelessness has led to the development of more targeted interventions and a continuum of care approach that reflects the diversity of the individuals and families who experience homelessness. And which many of our speakers also talked about some of the evidence-based and promising practices that need to be developed, have been developed, need to be expanded in order to better serve veterans, people experiencing homelessness, and others who have behavioral health disorders. So some of those include treatment for co-occurring disorders, approaches that integrate health and behavioral health care, supportive housing and housing first, and peer support services, especially WRAP, the Wellness Recovery Action Plan. But there are many models out there that bring the wisdom and compassion and generosity of people with lived experience to their peers. We also heard about the importance of purpose, and what we've also learned is how important it is to offer supported employment and career development early in treatment, not wait until somebody's completed treatment, until they're completely, recovered from their behavioral health problem or their substance abuse disorder, but offer it early in treatment. It can be the difference for somebody to stay the course and make the tough daily decisions to stay well. And then we're learning more and adopting more humane alternatives to crisis services, alternatives for people experiencing crisis, and offering more respite options, including some that are peer-run. That is a big gap in the system, though, and I do think that more mobile crisis and more respite especially would make a big difference in just how people feel about receiving services and encountering the system. So all these approaches can and do have enormous positive impacts with members of our communities that are struggling with homelessness and behavioral health. We're hopeful and realistic about the challenges that we face. Promoting wide-scale adoption and to sustain investment and commitment is very hard. And we have to be ready for the future and what that may bring to us in terms of the adoption and going to scale with some of these approaches that we know work and will prevent tragedy over the long term. So roll up our sleeves and be ready to fight for the continued adoption and expansion of these services. Many cities and counties in Florida have already embraced this challenge. We heard about this, and investing in these proven approaches and others to create innovative solutions for their communities. I'm really proud to be here to help AHP kick off our next chapter in Florida. It's an exciting time. We're ready to roll up our sleeves. We will face challenges ahead, but we have demonstrated that we have the passion, sometimes overused word, but I really believe it's true here, the passion, the commitment, the energy, the values, the comrades, all of that to make it happen, and we're really excited to be here. And thank you so much for this honor. I'm so happy to be here. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Valerie. Fantastic. So nice to be here. I think I might have taken your notes too. There you go.
All right, well, we appreciate everybody coming. This pretty much will conclude the ceremony. If everybody could now join us on this side, we will do the ribbon cutting, and then we'll conclude with some festivities.